Welcome to the first Rags to Riches episode on this channel. We'll be going over all of the different ELOs and we'll be using examples from computers, and once we get into some of the higher ranks we'll be going into actual online games. And the main goal of this is just to show what really you can use to improve your gameplay at every single ELO level that we're able to reach. So the first game that I'll be playing is against a computer. The name is Martin and they're rated at 250. So I'm going to make sure that we don't have any help of any kind, and I'm just going to go over everything that I would do to try and defeat this boss. And the reason that this episode is called Self-Destruction is because really that's what you're going for when you are fighting a bot. You're trying to get it to self-destruct. You're going to try and play as solidly as possible so that you don't have to worry about actually making too creative of moves, because eventually they're going to blunder a piece at this level of 250. Right now I'm just playing some similar openings. We've already seen a little bit of deviation of where this rook moved over to this g8 and where they pushed the pawn to a6. That's a little bit off of what normally happens in these style of openings. You can start to look at positions where the knight jumps forward, but because I've moved my bishop up here, I'm going to go ahead and castle and see what they do. Alright, so they push back, and I don't necessarily like that move. What I'm thinking would be best is if we try to create some sort of pawn break on this other side, just because we want to try and take up as much space as possible. Okay, so they're defending here, and what's always important to note is when a piece is moved, what squares no longer have defenders. This bishop is no longer guarding this b pawn. So let's see if we can take advantage of that in some way. Well, we notice that we have a knight that's attacking the e5 square and the d4 square. I want to try and challenge this knight, and he has ignored that challenge. So what I'm going to do, because my knight is a little bit stronger than his, I'm going to try and push out a little bit with my queen. And that's one thing that you will need to make sure of in these positions, is really at these lower levels, the thing that you want to focus on is don't hang a piece, really. It's just make sure that you are not accidentally giving the opponent every single thing that they want. You'll start to learn later as you play more what the opponent's going for. Right here, I'm guessing that they are trying to defend the b file. The bots at this level sometimes do just random moves, so it doesn't actually have to make sense. Here I'm going to make a pawn break, again trying to take control of the center here. This will be a good position here for us if we can get this going. Now let's see. What would be nice for us is if we could open up this d file so that we have an attack. And in order to do that, if I take here, knight will take here, or king could take, or this knight could take. More than likely it would be with this knight to get it more developed. This is actually not a bad game for a 250. I'm surprised at the level that is being played here. Now this queen move doesn't really threaten anything because this is protected by a pawn. They're never going to take with the queen. So one question is, what has this queen stopped attacking? It's still attacking this pawn from there. It is no longer defending this pawn, but that's not really something that we can take advantage of yet. One thing that I may try to do would be to kind of spicy up the situation, is try and get this knight to a better position. It's really not doing anything where it is right now. So I'm going to try and get it to move here so that it can start attacking some of these central squares. Okay, so this move doesn't really do anything. It's trying to line up for the F file, but there's so much stuff in the way that it's not really effective. It also kind of hangs a pawn because I can take here, and if they take, I take back. So the only issue here is we would take with check, but then they could take with the pawn, and that would fork both of our pieces. So what we can do is take this here, and now that the queen is over here and this is out of the way, we can do this. Okay, that's just a blunder because now we can take here, and then we can move this out of the way, or we can go on the attack. Let's move our knight to safety. This move here doesn't really threaten anything. This pawn was hanging. If this was a real person, I would assume that that was a mouse slip. But this pawn isn't really important to my position, so I'm not worried about it. What I am worried about is trying to make this attack happen. And the best way to do that would be to break here. Okay. Now this is a tactic that I would not expect a 250 to see, but you can take this pawn here, because if they take, then you get the rook. And so it doesn't really matter that you fall behind on the pawn there. And the goal of this check is just to try and get the king to a square that I am happier with them being on. Because we're so many points ahead, it's good for us to make trades, so they also will not want to make trades. Again, the goal here is to try and get the king to a position that feels a little bit better for me here. none of these checks are really threatening because the queen by itself can't do anything. So that's the issue that we run into here. And then this is just a common checkmating pattern that you will learn. I've pre-moved of where the king comes over and defends the queen when she moves, and that's checkmate. So I will go and play one more game. I will do the same bot, the same Martin, and this time I'm going to play as black. And personally, when I play black, I like to play the King's Indian. That's very common for someone to push here, but c4 is also acceptable. Bishop c4. Okay, well that was just hanging a piece. Like I said, that's why the title of this video is called what it is because very often the AI will just, I don't even know what you would call it, they would have a heart attack and just play moves that make absolutely no sense. Alright, see if we can take advantage here of this queen and rook being on the same diagonal. We can develop our bishop once it's safe. So we move here, threatening to take here if we can get rid of this. See here. Alright, so now they've defended that and they've pushed. That was a good move. Let's see what the best plan of action here would be. They shouldn't be moving their pawns so much in front of their king because that allows for me to create weaknesses pretty easily. But luckily for them, they don't have to worry too much yet because there's only so much that I can do right now. Now it should be safe to take here, take here. Alright, so they decided not to take. And that's actually a good move, except they can't take here because then I would just take. And now we've pinned the knight, so we can sort of run around and make some chaos here. And they have not moved out of the pin yet. We're also just going to go ahead and take one of these for ourselves, because why not, right? More than likely I want to keep this pin, this pin here, so I'm not going to take like this, I'm going to take like this. Now we can capture here, and that just seems off, because now if they, okay, that's what I mean about these bots are a little strange sometimes. They don't play moves that are entirely logical, so you don't have to worry too much. This is protected by the bishop, so should be good. Go ahead and attack this. Looks like they took a pawn. I don't particularly care about that. we'll take the rook here. They've got that, but again, not really too worried about them taking our pawn. Even though it was an advanced pawn, they just hung their bishop. And with this, there should be this mating pattern. Yep. Alright, well that is all of the games that I will play in episode 1. And I will come back for the next bot and go over that and just kind of work on the concepts of piece continuity, of what pieces are protecting each other, and when one of us makes a move, I'll try and go more into detail about what that piece has stopped defending and what it started to defend. So with that said, I hope you have a wonderful day.